In modern Washington, questions of media and those of infrastructure are treated separately. They operate in their own silos of law, policy, and advocacy, and this separation has to end. It's not enough to have either a robust market for news and information or universal, affordable access to the internet. We need a strong market for journalism and freedom of the press, and we need to ensure that information reaches all corners of the country and that everybody can engage. We must and can have both. Now, the President Obama said just last, I think, Saturday, that a government without newspapers, a government without a tough and vibrant media of all sorts is not an option in the United States of America. He clearly gets it. His comments on journalism were spot on, and he has a progressive internet agenda. Our purpose here today, though, is to put those issues together and to understand that they're not just abstract policy questions. We must understand that they matter. They matter for the lives of millions of Americans, and that's why we're really in this room. We're here because 20,000 journalists have been laid off in the last 18 months. Without decisive strategic action by people in this room, we face the real possibility that the Fourth Estate will crumble and it won't be possible to make a living as a journalist. In fact, if we fail to act, we'll lose the few remaining reporters covering state houses and city hall, hardworking journalists who are acting as your eyes and ears and holding corporations and government accountable. There are promising new media enterprises, and many people have talked about that and read about that, especially recently. But in the short term, the transition from old media to new creates some risks. Even if websites and blogs were ready to replace newspapers, what about the 40% of Americans who still don't have internet access? And if that transition from old media to new happens in the wrong way, what happens to the 20,000 more journalists who could be laid off in the next 18 months? Some people will say that I'm actually trying to protect the status quo, and that's not the case. We have witnessed devastating failures by our press. Even the best newsrooms missed the biggest stories of our generation, WMDs in Iraq and the impending financial collapse. Television news has become a circus of flashy graphics, superficial sound bites, blustering pundits, celebrities, and crime. Radio has been reduced to homogenized playlists and bellowing ideologues. The entire dial is empty of local news in many of our communities. Our daily newspapers are struggling to deal with the plummeting ad revenues as readers switch to the internet, but the most severe problems that they're facing were not just caused by Craigslist, but by ill-advised mergers that brought impossible debts. Our job here today is to not simply protect what we still have. It is to create a system that is better than before, with new forms of journalism that can flourish, reporters that can make a living, and the best elements of institutional newsrooms that are preserved. That was an applause line. And we're here today because of those 40% of Americans who don't have internet access. It's not just a statistic, it's millions of hardworking families aspiring for a better life. It's rural households that can't buy internet access at any price. It's urban neighborhoods where service exists but they can't afford it. Many don't even have computers. We're here today because internet access has become essential for social mobility, for realizing the American dream. We're here because failed policies played a big part in creating these problems, and we must play a big part in solving them. Finally, we're here today because we're the wealthiest nation on the planet, and we have the poorest public media system in the developed world. Other countries enjoy robust public broadcasting that supplements commercial media with much needed cultural, educational, local, and public affairs programming. It's remarkable how much our public broadcasters do with so little, but the crisis-facing newsrooms and the ongoing failures of commercial media make it all the more essential that America reinvest in our public media. But more resources must come with more independence from politics. We need stronger checks and balances to prevent political meddling. We must foster more diverse content and expand the definition of who and what constitute public media. It is not an overstatement when I say that the analysis and recommendations in this book are central to the future of our economy and the very viability of our democracy. If we do not ensure the internet is fast, open, affordable, and available to everyone, we will continue to fall behind the rest of the world. If we do not ensure that we have a reliable watchdog looking out for us in the halls of power, our democracy will not function. These are the two pillars of democracy, the same today as they are today as they were for Thomas Jefferson 200 years ago. Many lobbyists, PR firms, and paid industry experts will continue to invoke hollow talking points to protect the broken status quo. They'll argue that policymaking in the public interest is a government intrusion. They'll say that our policies will cause their financial ruin. And when all else fails, they'll call our proposals solutions searching for a problem. But we've heard it all before, and we're ready to move beyond these tired debates. What we propose today is a new direction, a fair regulatory approach that protects consumers, promotes competition, and allows the companies with the best ideas and products to make money. A combination of public policy and market forces will achieve these outcomes. It is not an either-or proposition. Companies can make profits and the public interest can be served simultaneously. But to move forward, we have to learn from our mistakes. We must scrap the failed policies of the past and embrace new solutions. The economic crisis has, once and for all, put an end to the free market myth that government has no role in protecting and promoting society's information needs. Access to independent, diverse, skeptical media is a fundamental right and a cornerstone of our democracy. But for too many years, media and technology debates have been brokered amongst industry lobbyists, and the public has been left out in the cold. Those days are over, and from here forward, it is the voices and the interests of the American people that come first. We are a nation with strong free speech protections and a long history of policymaking in support of a diverse and wide-ranging marketplace of ideas. Today represents the next chapter in that history. This book is part of that history, and today we will write it together. Thank you.